Well, hello again, my friends. This is another revolutionary thought, revolutionary idea for that matter. This week we're going to talk a little bit more because it's tax season here in the United States, and I've been warned by several people and my friends and, of course, within my community, don't do this video, David. They're going to come after you. Hang on a second. I pay my taxes. I follow the rules as they so say they're supposed to be because I just follow that along in the sheeple mentality only because I can't fight them. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. But I'm talking about the IRS this year, the whole thing about filing a 1040 and filing your tax returns every single year. And there's been questions over the course of the last 30 years or so now as to determine whether or not filing taxes is required by all citizens of the United States. Now, here's the problem. The Constitution of the United States is a very thin piece of paper. You could probably put it in a pamphlet or a booklet. Constitution along with all of the amendments in there. Now, the IRS tax code, if you've never seen it, is a book about the size of that thick, okay? And it goes on with all of this little jargon and citing this section and that section and this section and that section. So literally you have to be a lawyer or you have to be one of those people who just enjoy that kind of shit to understand what they're actually saying in there. The problem with the IRS and the problem with the whole thing surrounding the IRS is when it was created and why it was created. Now, if anybody knows a little bit about history, the IRS actually dates back to the time of Lincoln around 1862, and the whole purpose of it was to actually gain money or gain funds from the American people to pay off the war debt. That was the original idea behind it, and that's a noble idea, okay? If America, puts up its forces to defend its own country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as they say, well, then, yes, I think it's an obligation to American people to try to help in that effort because we're all in it together. Now, we may not agree with it, and we may not agree, especially where it is today and all of the other crap that's going around the world, but that's another story for another time. The bottom line, the idea behind the Internal Revenue Service at that time was noble. Now, today, the issue goes a lot further than what you're actually seeing and hearing and all of that other nonsense that they show you on the television as to reasons why you should pay your taxes, that the government needs your income tax in order to sustain itself. That's fucking nonsense. Totally nonsense. Because it didn't need all of that from 1789 all the way up until 1913 when the IRS is what it is today. Now, what's really strange and what's really interesting at the same point is what many people may not be aware of is what actually happened in 1913. The institution of the Federal Reserve System. Now, many people, even in America today, and a lot of people around the world, don't realize that the Federal Reserve System is not run by the government. It's not. It is a private bank entity, meaning that you yourself, if you were part of that whole echelon at the time, could have started your own bank. And it's a centralized banking system that's located in several regions around the world, but basically controls the monetary systems of many countries. In particular, I'm talking about the United States right now. Now, when you see Federal Reserve note on your dollar bills, that does not mean that it is printed by the American government or backed by the American government. It's not. It's backed by a privatized bank called the Federal Reserve System. Now, what's very interesting about that is that the Federal Reserve System, okay, was created in 1913, and the IRS, for the way that it is today with the IRS 1040, was created around the same time. Now, interesting enough, they said it was to pay back war debt and all that other stuff around World War I and all that. That's the idea and all of the history kind of surrounding it. But again, why do we still see the Internal Revenue Service and the income tax actually being apportioned on people's labor in the United States today, which is a true violation of the 16th Amendment? But here we go. Let's talk about this on the big scale. Now, what many people may not be aware of, okay, is that according to the IRS tax code, the word income is not defined. It's not defined. Now, they talk about income. They talk about income, many different types of income. Income from here, income from there. But when you ask the question, what is income? It is not defined in the law. And if you ask any IRS tax agent or anybody like that to show me where the law is, they'll always reference to other things within it. And like it's assumed that it's there, that it's assumed word that it's there. But every word in legal terminology is always defined. Because income, in a sense, how are you supposed to know if you're supposed to pay income if you don't even know what the hell income is? What defines income? Now, many tax agents who used to work for the IRS said that income is defined by gains associated with using the monetary system or the system in general to make a profit. Meaning that if you were to take your money that you earned, like say you worked, took a job and you earned some money and then you invested it into, let's say, a corporation, or you used the system, the stock market, what have you, and you made X amount of dollars, let's say you made $100,000 in your investment, the $100,000 of that investment should be able to be taxed because you used it in the terms of gaining money, used the system basically to gain a profit. The problem with the IRS tax system today, and the reason that so many people are fed up with it and don't understand it, and you would literally have to be a rogue scholar to understand what that whole book is talking about, is because the system is designed to keep you in the dark and fed on shit so that you don't really know what's going on. That's the reality behind a lot of things that are actually happening in the world today. And again, I'm not saying don't pay your taxes. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out there. But what I am saying is you should investigate what's actually going on with the IRS system and the IRS tax system as it is today, and how it slowly evolved over the course of the last, 100 years. If you think about it, in 1913, the Federal Reserve System went into place. Shortly thereafter, the IRS 1040 was initiated. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of people out there from both sides who are going to try to argue this or argue that. But in reality, what most people don't realize is that the federal tax system, or the reason that we pay income taxes every single year, is to pay back the money that the government borrows from these privatized banks every single year. They can print notes at a thin fucking air. You think about that. For instance, the way the monetary system used to be is that in order for you to receive a note for something, you had to actually have gold or silver or something to back up that note. That meaning that the note had value, okay? Today, it has no value. And most people don't realize that. $100 in your pocket is paper. It is backed by absolutely nothing. If the Federal Reserve System was to fall apart tomorrow, that would be just as good as a shit ticket. A piece of toilet paper to wipe your ass with. It absolutely has no value whatsoever. Value is not in paper. I've asked the question before to people. If you have an apple and you have a dollar bill, who is more valuable? Who has the most valuable thing right there? It's the person with the apple, of course. Well, why? Why would you ask that question? Well, because the apple is something that you eat. You can't gain nutrition from a dollar bill, can you? And it comes full circle here, my friends. What we need to understand today about the IRS, the Federal Reserve System, and a lot of these other nonsense government entities out there is they're only put into place to keep people into the slave-controlled mentality. And that thing, and that statement right there may get me into trouble. Because a lot of people out there don't believe that we're slaves, that we live in a free country, we have democratic principles, we elect our officials, we go through this whole, barrage of bullshit to try to get people into the presidency and into elected office, and then we vote on these laws and we strike down amendments, and it's all a charade, my friends. It's all a charade. If majority of the people basically had a voice, and if we actually were to stand up for what we really have the power to say, 90% of the shit that's happening in Washington today would not happen. The Federal Reserve System should be shut down tomorrow if you could get congressional people to do so, which they have the right under law to basically say, no, I'm not going to allow a privatized bank to basically print notes and control the economy. And that's what they're doing, my friends. That's what they're doing. These banks literally can print millions upon millions upon millions of dollars and absolutely have nothing to back it up on. The printing machine goes, the United States government borrows it, and then the American people have to pay a huge tax and interest on the money that is borrowed. You ever heard of a thing called the debt ceiling? They were talking about it several years back, about increasing the debt ceiling and increasing the debt ceiling and increasing the debt ceiling. Well, how much is enough? When does it get to the point where you basically start borrowing? Hey, look, if I did the same shit with my credit cards, if I was to go charge the son of a bitches up and then just say, can you give me an increase, but I'm not going to pay it. Can you give me more of an increase? I'm just not going to pay it, though. I can't pay it right now. We'll get you. We'll owe you. We'll owe you. Give me a break. Nobody in their right mind would ever work for a system like that. And rightfully well, you wouldn't even have a credit card very long if that was happening. But the government, it's a blank check. They can print these notes because they're backed by the American people's income tax that is going to slowly keep paying this interest off and this interest off and this interest off and this interest off. It's never going to end. And that's why you keep seeing the national debt continue to keep growing and growing and growing, because it's out of control now. Government has no control over the monetary system. It never did. Since 1913, it never did. When we signed into law the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, guess what? Everything went out the damn... It doesn't matter who's controlling government anymore. People don't realize that. If you give control of the money system to a private entity, do you think he gives a shit, he or she gives a shit who is running the White House? No, because I'm in control of what you spend and what you can do. And if you don't get with me and if you don't rub elbows with me the right way, you ain't going to get that check, are you? We're not going to print that money for you. We're not going to let you borrow what it is you need to borrow. And in the end, you're going to fall flat on your face. So what I'm asking people to do is to take what it is that I'm saying and go research some stuff out on your own. Look into, there's a couple films out there. One that I think is very interesting. Again, the facts in it are 100% backed up. You can look these things up on your own. There are many witness testimony in the documentary called America, Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo. It's a wonderful documentary to get you kind of started in this whole process. And then I highly also recommend a book out there by a man named Pete Hendrickson called Cracking the Code. And what he has done in a very, very, methodical way is break down the IRS tax code system. Now, again, I don't know if there's a new revision up there. This book was written probably about 10, 15 years ago. And Mr. Hendrickson himself has gone through the shitter trying to get these things passed within the IRS and in the Supreme Court, because a lot of times judges just don't want to strike it down. They don't want to be the one going on record to say what it is on the books as far as what income is defined as doesn't exist. Because once they do that and the Supreme Court puts a stamp on it, then the law is supposed to follow according to that, which it doesn't. There have been many situations in history where the Supreme Court said that the Congress does not have any more taxing ability. So therefore, if they don't have any more taxing ability, a direct apportioned tax on a person's labor is absolutely ridiculous. And it's ridiculous for this reason. You get up every morning, go to work. You basically sacrifice your time and energy in exchange for money. That's what you're doing. So you go to your job, you do work for them, and they pay you money for the services that you are doing. That should not be taxable. Why? Because it's an even exchange. There's no gain involved there. You're doing a task, they're paying you for that task. Now, if, let's say, for argument's sake, you were to take the money that you made from that task and then went and invested it in, let's say, a person's private company, and then you made $100,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, then you're gaining something by doing nothing. That is considered taxable in the broader sense as well. I mean, I think that's the same reason why a lot of these rich fat cat corporations never pay tax. There's arguments out there that Donald Trump never paid taxes, and that's why he won't release his tax returns. Very interesting how corporations that make millions upon billions of dollars don't have to pay taxes, but yet Joe Schmo, ass clown at the bottom, has to pay all of it, has to pay a majority of it. So these are the realities, my friends. I know I rambled a little bit here, but it's something that I want you to pay attention to. It's something that I want you to kind of consider if you don't understand how we got to the point we are in history today. And if you don't know how we got there, go back and read the whole situation that led up to the Federal Reserve and basically how we pretty much crippled the American government system. It's no longer a republic. It has become a totalitarian state. And the reason is because we have become enslaved to these huge bankers that pretty much have the puppet strings, control the puppet strings over what you see in Washington every single day. So I want you to check that out. Go back and look at the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Check out the 16th Amendment, which talks specifically about the taxing issues. Also, look at, try to see if you can discover where income is defined. The word income. Tell me where it is defined in the IRS tax code. What does it mean? Define income. Who should pay? Who should pay this income tax? Where is this income tax going? Because many people will get the wrong impression about where taxes are going. They say, well, in order for this tax, we have to pay for roads. We got to pay for schools and education and all this other stuff. No, my friends. There are a ballistic large number of taxes that you pay at the local level and the state level that come out of your property taxes, your gasoline taxes, your air excise taxes. When you use your cell phone, you pay a tax for this and that. There's taxes on just about everything today that are designed to pay for those luxuries. And again, that's another thing, a luxury. Those are luxuries. But the income tax has nothing to do with that. And if they're telling you that, they're fucking full of shit. All right? You need to go do some research on your own. You need to look up also direct tax and indirect tax. What is a direct tax? What is an indirect tax? Okay, direct taxes mean this is what I'm taxing you on. An indirect tax, for instance, like in the sense of like what some people would call like a luxury tax. Like, for instance, cigarettes. I don't have to buy cigarettes, but if I want cigarettes, I will pay a tax on that for that luxury in a sense. I don't have to drive a car. Okay, I could ride my bicycle. So therefore, I have another option as to finding another means of transportation to get from here to there. So there are other ways around, not having to pay those taxes if you don't want to. And if you do want to use those services, well then yes, you pay a luxury or you pay a tax for those services. One more thing before I go. Did you ever find it interesting that the food that you buy in the grocery store, real food, non-prepared, okay, is not taxed? It's not taxed. You go buy some apples or some bananas, or you go buy yourself some canned fruit or 100% fruit juice, vegetables, meats, things that a person needs in order to survive. The basics of what we need in order to survive are not taxable. They're not taxable. Now, if you want to go in and buy Coca-Cola, that's a luxury, okay? Not natural. It's a processed type soda, whatever it is. It's more of a luxury. Toilet paper, luxuries. Cosmetics, luxuries. Shampoos, conditioners, soaps, all that stuff are luxuries. You want to smell better, you want to look better, you pay for those kind of things. They're not quote-unquote needs in order to survive. But food is. But then again, so is your labor. If you don't work, you don't eat. So how in hell's name, let's ask yourself this question, how in hell's name is a person supposed to do all the things that they're supposed to do, pay a mortgage, pay the electric, eat, put gasoline in the car, whatever, pay for your kids to go to college, all that. How are they supposed to do that without working, without making a buck, without doing the service that they're supposed to do in order to make an income? But at the same point, if I don't make an income, none of these things happen. We become a nanny state. Basically, I have to rely on the government to give me everything. So my point is that your income should never be taxed. The quote word income, what you're doing for work, should never be taxed because it is something you must do in order to survive. You cannot buy the things in this world without money. And I'm going to leave you with that. Please check out America Freedom to Fascism. I will probably put a link down below to link you to that video. Also, Amazon.com. I'm sure there's probably a PDF out on the internet now called Cracking the Code by Pete Hendrickson. Very interesting read. Breaks down a lot of the articles in the book. Even can show people how to get around some of the things that are actually going with the IRS, the IRS 1040 system, using forms like 4852 and a couple of other different forms out there. Now, this is not me telling you to not pay your taxes, because if you're supposed to pay your taxes, you need to pay your taxes. What I'm saying is that there are 70 million plus Americans every single year that do not file a tax return, okay? Now, obviously, there are some people that go to jail every single year because they don't file a tax return, and they get audited, and they have to serve time because of that. And it's not a lot of time, most of the time, I should say not all the time, but many situations, the main reason is because the person that they're going after does not have the money to pay for a constitutional or tax lawyer in order to defend them. And if they don't, and if they're not fully wrapped around the bullshit thing called the tax code and can really understand it, all meat and potatoes, it's very, very difficult to argue with a government that has an endless bankroll that is backed by the Federal Reserve System. You can see how this is all connected, my friends? You see how it's all connected? Leave me a comment. Now, all of the stuff I said today may not be 100% verbatim. I don't consider myself a tax lawyer. I don't consider myself a tax guru. I just consider myself a person who's an informed American. Okay? I've read countless books about this. I've watched many different documentaries about it, and I've submitted different things to the IRS about inquiries in the past to try to determine what was this and what was that. And there's a lot of information that comes out from the IRS. Most of the time, they'll just design everything as to being frivolous, or that's a frivolous statement. Frivolous doesn't say anything, though, when you get those pieces of paper. It doesn't say anything, because frivolous doesn't really define anything. It's just what you're submitting to us is absolutely frivolous. You need to fix this, fix this, fix this. And if you don't fix this, they're going to come after your ass, because they have the power. They have Thor's hammer, and they will whack you with it if you don't. And majority of people continue to keep paying these taxes because of fear. So I understand that. I understand that whole part, but it's the time. We're in a revolutionary change in the world today, and that's why I call this a revolutionary thought. We're at a time in history now where we have to wake up. We have to actually educate ourselves about some of the shit that's going on today. And if we don't, we're just going to be left like the sheeple. We're going to have that sheeple mentality and just follow the herd, follow the herd. You can't do that anymore, my friends. You got to be bigger than that. We're in that age of Aquarius now. We're basically starting to come out of this Iron Age and into this Bronze Age, where we can start to become more enlightened and more aware of what the hell's going on there. And there's a lot of people, I believe, today that have just fed up with this stuff, and they're not buying into the bullshit that the governments and the entities that support government, the federal banks, big pharma, big oil, big banking, all of that. Nobody thinks that they're getting a fair shake in the system anymore, and it's about time they finally started to wake up. About time. So look into this stuff yourself. Again, Freedom to Fascism, America Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo, and Cracking the Code by Pete Henderson. Two incredible pieces of information that I think is going to raise an eyebrow for you. So, hope this was informative. Leave your comments below. You can hate me. You can, send me a middle finger if you want to. I don't really care. But Revolution. This is Dave. Thank you again for checking me out. www.romanrevolution.com. There'll be stuff up there periodically throughout the week. Recording another podcast this week. So stay tuned. And if you have any topic matter that you would like to discuss, please email me, david@romanrevolution.com. Have a wonderful week, my friends. Namaste. Peace as always. Take care.